Who is a celebrity you once admired but no longer, and why? Story 1. Naomi Campbell, I admired for being one of the first black models to grace major magazine covers. Alongside other black models like Amon and Beverly Johnson to name a few, I can't imagine the racism and struggle she had to face to make it in the industry, and then she threw her cell phone at her assistant. And then she embezzled charity funds last year, so no, I'm good. Story 2. Roseanne, she was a feminist and hilarious for her time, then she got all crazy in MAGA. Also found out she was a terrible mother IRL, her fame corrupted her. Story 3. Jared Leto, I was enamored as a teen, especially 30 Seconds to Mars and Requiem for a Dream, gotten an ineffable ick for him as I grew older, and recently found out he's a super creep borderline pedophile with an actual literal cult following. He throws private island retreats, white robes and group meditation, the whole 9 yards of manipulation tactics, and IRC he sold tickets to spend the night in his bed. Story 4. I used to be a big Emma Roberts fan, I loved Nancy Drew, I loved Aquamarine, then I found out she beat the out of Evan Peters in a hotel room, was up, I can't stand her anymore, not particularly a celebrity per se, but Justin Tucker, arguably the greatest kicker in NFL history. He happened to follow the Deshaun Watson path of being a predator who believed in happy endings. Story 5. Rachel Ray, I had a big crush on her years ago, and I watched her 30-minute meal show frequently on Food Network, but then she started selling out by shilling in all those crummy commercials, and I learned that she was really nasty to fans, servers and people in general. Her rotten real-life attitude and her selling out totally turned me off her. Story 6. I don't know if I'd say admire, but I met Armie Hammer at Stage Door after he did a play in NYC and he couldn't have been nicer. I referenced a really old show had been on Reaper and he mentioned that one of the co-stars had been to see the show, and he made sure he signed whatever people were handing him. This was right after Call Me By Your Name. He seemed so sweet. Story 7. Sean Connery, I used to think he was hot, but found out he was a proud wife beater. He didn't think there was anything wrong with smacking a woman across the face, and said so numerous times. Most guys who hit their wives at least pretend to be sorry. Story 8. Tyra Banks, I really enjoyed watching ANTM as a kid, but rewatching it when I was older only showed Tyra and her minions pretty much abusing the out of the contestants for shits and giggles at some points. Story 9. Rihanna and her clothing brand that uses sweatshops. She was smirking while people were protesting against her as she was coming out of the courthouse she was in. I think it was during her husband's trial. Her smirk just rubbed me the wrong way. Edit typos. Story 10. Joe Rogan, back when he was just an idiot who would have interesting conversations with people from different backgrounds, but now it's become a circle jerk of the same comedians, politicians, and conspiracy theorists pushing a narrative. Story 11. James Franco grew up on the Spider-Man movies and I enjoyed a lot of the other stuff I saw him in at the time. Teenage stoner. I was the right age. I watched The Disaster Artist while tripping on acid and it changed me a bit even though I haven't seen The Room. Either way, rapists. Thank God Weird Al has just been a good dude his whole life. Story 12. Ewan McGregor, I devoured his movies after seeing him in Star Wars at 12. My mom even got me his movie Pillow Book for my 14th birthday, but he came out in support of Roman Polanski. I can't grasp how a man with children could want that creep pardoned. Story 13. Elon Musk, I bought the hype. I was down for electric cars and loved the idea that we had a real-life Tony Stark. Then as time went on it became more and more clear that it was all 100 bullshit and he's a con artist. All of his unethical dealings and mask-off evil activities aside, he's also just an unsettling person. Like he's an uncanny valley approximation of what aliens think a human is, kind of unsettling. Story 14. Aaron Rodgers, Cal Berkeley grad, all-time great NFL quarterback, lied about vaccination status in a pandemic, wasn't punished, has followed the debacle up with being a general arrogant. Story 15. Bill Maher, I used to be hardcore into atheism as a teen, so I loved the anti-religious content. Then later I realized I mostly disagree with him politically. Story 16. I used to drink the Chrissy Teigen Kool-Aid, and then she started to get sloppy and just behaving worse than usual. She became a huge hypocrite when it came to light that she went out of her way to continually privately message a then 17-year-old Courtney Stoughton to kill herself and bully her relentlessly publicly. Story 17. Mel Gibson, creepy, drunken, wife-abusing, anti-Semitic monster, Tom Cruise, cult, Tom Sizemore, junkie, Russell Brand, rapist and Danny Masterson, Oprah, just horrible, Barbara Walters, also horrible to women and children with her creepy questions, any celebrity that supported a rapist for president. Story 18. Elton John, I saw he stole someone's Tupperware and I just can't anymore. It's like all of his charity work was just a front to hide the true monster. Story 19. Mark Calloway, aka The Undertaker, I spent most of my adult life telling stories of his level of commitment to the business. The things he put his body through to get to the level he was at were insane. Then he had Trump on his podcast, spent the whole episode blowing the guy, and ended by bringing his daughter out to meet our civilly liable rapist president and tell him how glad his was that Trump was going to protect girls like her. Hard no, throw the whole man out, pick up the whole dead man, take the whole phenom out to the curb, throw the whole American bias in the trash. Story 20. Ellen, thought it was cool that she was herself in a time people didn't accept it. It's a shame that she took You Are What You Eat literally and turned into a. Story 21. When they go MAGA, I just can't. Dennis Quaid was a disappointment. He distanced himself from his lunatic MAGA brother Randy in 2016, but then joined him this time around. Story 22 Jerry Seinfeld. After seeing his stand-up comedy, I realized that all his fame and fortune was handed to him by Larry David, who is a hilarious genius. Story 23 John Mulaney. Yes, he cheated on his wife. Yes, lots of people get divorced, blah blah blah. Accuse me of being parasocial to avoid thinking badly about him, lol. But it's the way he talks about his life now and his sobriety. It just all feels so performative, not fake by any means. It's like he's saying, hey, look at me. I use drugs, don't look over there. Not at my EXW, look at me now with my new wife and kids and sobriety. Especially after all of his bits he used to do about his ex-wife. The fact he's never mentioned it or apologized, even once in passing, would have been enough. Story 24 Chris Brown. I enjoyed his music and even had a crush on him as a kid. That ended for obvious reasons. I love that I immediately didn't like him after the DV incident because I know people my age who still do. It's tragic. Story 25 Travis Scott. Used to enjoy his music, but I cannot have respect for him after he continued to perform when people were losing their lives at Astrofest. Story 26 Not admired, but I got a pic with, and an autograph from Peter Dante, the weed dealer from Grandma's Boy. Then a year later I found out why Adam Sandler doesn't work with him anymore. He called a black hotel worker the N-word for not recognizing him. I ripped up that autograph pretty quick. Story 27 When Kanye called out the Bush admin on their abject failure re-Katrina, he became an icon to me. It was a sort of formative moment. I grew up with his music and I admired his artistry for literal decades. Haven't even thought about touching his old stuff in 6 years. He's a grotesque person. Story 28 Graham Linehan. Wrote some of the greatest comedies of all time. Father Ted, Black Books, IT Crowd. Wrote for some other shows. Wrote some terrific books articles. Was a hilarious, engaging, smart talk show guest. And then became a rabidly insane, illogical TRF. Destroyed his career, family, became a complete lost cause. Completely lost his mind. Story 29 James Corden. Spelling. I really liked his carpool karaoke. Then, the news he was Ellen 2.0 came out, plus, that awful interaction with actor Patrick Stewart. Ugh. Story 30 Marilyn Manson. He always came across as incredibly well-spoken and really resonated with me as a misfit teen who felt misunderstood by pretty much everyone in my life. I ignored many a red flag because of his shock rocker shtick when I looked up to him. By the time everything came out about the SA stuff, the penny really dropped that he was always a bit of a POS, and it wasn't just a bit. Story Even before all of the allegations, he was tanking shows pretty badly and embarrassing himself and his fans. Yes, he has been cleared of all charges, but I personally believe more often than not that where there's smoke, there's fire. Now he just comes off as creepy and skeezy, and I can't shake that opinion. Story 32 Bill Nye. My kids and I loved his show and enjoyed seeing interviews of him, but when we met him in person, he was a complete. Other people have confirmed to me that his behavior wasn't a one-off. He didn't just have a bad day, he is always a. Story 33 Drew Barrymore. When she tried to hire scabs during the writer's strikeout really bothered me. You'd think she if asked people would respect the unions. Story 34 Jimmy Savile. He was a superstar DJ and charity fundraiser back in the day, but it turned out, after his death, that he had been a total slimeball pedophile the whole time. Big organizations had been covering up for him and he was seen to be too famous to touch. Operation U-Tree was launched by the Metropolitan Police in October 2012. Shortly after an ITV documentary aired multiple allegations of abuse by Savile, it uncovered a vast pattern of abuse spanning decades, and it also led to investigations and prosecutions of other high-profile individuals. Story 35 Kat Von D. I looked up to her so much when I was younger, even crazier to say that now as a tattoo artist. It really went downhill for me during the pandemic, calling masks chin diapers, and just constantly spewing the oppressed elite Californian rhetoric. The nail in the coffin was that Theo Von interview she recently had. She was saying how everyone has tattoos these days, that it's like boring now. She seems to have forgotten what a trailblazer she was, talking about an industry she partly popularized just because she feels like she doesn't stand out anymore. So she's finding new, less popular things to base her personality off of, in an effort to make herself different from the rest of us. A lot of other reasons as well, but those are the main ones I remember. Story 37 Jared Leto. Because 30STM was a big part of my childhood. I also enjoyed his acting in Lord of War and Requiem for a Dream alongside a few other early movies. But he didn't even talk to us when we went backstage for a concert in 2013, then the whole cultist show started and yeah. Story 38 My dad. I used to think he was this paragon of kindness, good moral compass, and wisdom. Then my sisters told me he hit them, and he hates gays, and loves Trump and Elon. I recognize the man he is now, and while I love him, I do not respect him anymore. Story 39 This might be a bit of a niche one for you curse Aussies and New Zealanders, but Rolf frickin' Harris. I remember watching his shows, him painting fantastic black and white pictures that you couldn't see what it was until the last 5 brush strokes, the didgeridoo, songs like Sunrise and Jake the Peg. He even did a AC/DC skit song on the radio that was hilarious. Then we find out what he was like behind closed doors. Yes, paid what little price society could exact from him. Yes, he was stripped of any award he ever earned. Yes, he's dead still, the damage he did outweighs all that. Story 40 Oprah Winfrey. Loved her show back in the day. She popularized Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil and has never really said anything about that. Don't hate her, but I don't respect her as I once did. Story 41 Britney Spears during her peak in the late 90s early 2000s. Now, her opinions on vaccines and some of her other views just don't sit right with me. Fandom can be fleeting. Story 42 Conor McGregor, Irish star rising, until he got a mouth on him and started attacking people which wasn't on, and the stuff afterwards just made me say good, told you, idiot to myself. Story 43 Arnold Schwarzenegger, he lied about having a child with his maid for 14 years, probably would have kept it a secret until his wife found out. His wife was pregnant at the same time as the maid too. Story 44 Johnny Depp, absolutely fell in love with him as a kid, and it was a cute thing I shared with my mom and grandma that we all had a crush on him. As I got older and watched more of his films, so many of them became all-time favorites. I can't watch anything he's in anymore, not even for moral reasons per se, but it's just too sad and disappointing to me. I make it a point to watch a bunch of new for me movies every year now, so I'm never in that position again where my entire love of an art form revolves around one person. Story 45 Dave Grohl, I've been a fan of his career since I was in 5th grade. After watching the music video for Best of You by Foo Fighters, that was what really got me into music. I thought he looked so cool in it. I was 10 or 11 years old, and for the next 20 years, I genuinely thought he was a wholesome guy rock star. After the whole cheating and kid scandal last year, I just kind of stopped caring. I don't feel any admiration for him anymore. Now it's just meh, I really couldn't care less. Story 46 Neil Gaiman, I used to love his work, mainly Sandman, and thought he was the most down-to-earth authors. He's sad 9 women now. I want to burn my Sandman paperbacks in a fire. Story 47 Will Smith, I loved everything he did. He assaulted a man on live, national television and suffered little consequence. He's a, Will Smith then his Nepo baby tweets, and that's how we do it. Will Smith. The smack was ridiculous. Story 48 Jackie Chan, he looked the most wholesome guy in the whole world and his movies made me so happy, but I later heard about his multiple affairs, abandoning her illegitimate daughter for being lesbian, sucking up to CCP, hanging his son out to dry after he got caught with drugs. Also I learned that he used stunt doubles. Ironically, even Jet Li and Donnie Yen also have used them. Story 49 Bill Murray, I was a fan until I learned what he is on set. The way he treated Lucy Liu was contemptible. Now he is going around giving interviews trying to repair his reputation. Story 50 Pretty much all celebrities. I realized many are just tools for agendas. Agendas that don't have any good intentions, and agendas that are the same but effortlessly shift sides when most opportune. Frankly, I don't trust anyone in major public eye now. They all lie and they play along with the massive power struggles we have seen taking place in USA for the past 15 plus years now. Frankly, it's sad how many actually still believe legacy media celebrities. Sad. Story 51 Christina Aguilera, the oversinging turned predictable and tedious. It became increasingly clear with each new album that she had zero artistic vision or plans to evolve as an entertainer, and she just always had that stank attitude. Looking back at old interviews from the stripped era is especially painful. She was such a pick-me. I don't like belly button piercings, they're too cookie-cutter. Sometimes I break glass in alleyways and smoke a little pot to let off some steam. These record labels felt so comfortable passing me off as a white woman. Girl, shut up. Story 52 I grew up loving Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe on the Discovery Channel. I thought he was so funny and down to earth, but now I hear he's MAGA and saying generational stereotypical nonsense. Story 53 Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise, J.K. Rowling, Rolf Harris, and I hate to admit it, but I once used to think Elon Musk was cool. It was a decade ago, but it still bothers me that I didn't see who he really was back then. Story 54 Embarrassed to say this, but Joe Rogan, it was a very lonely time in my life. I was broke, no GF, few friends, hated my job. I found JRE clips on Whitey one day and found them to be so entertaining, nearly fell into the right-wing rabbit hole from seeing people like Steven Crowder and Jordan Peterson on. I was saved for a few reasons, namely seeing Bernie Sanders and Kyle Kalinske on the podcast. Looking back, I realized that most of the show was just insecurity and slop. Some of the episodes were educational and good, but I have no idea how I ever fell for his anti-trans BS. I guess I wasn't very educated on the subject and didn't think too hard about his bad arguments. I think he's an embarrassingly stupid and insecure person now, and am disappointed in myself for being a fan for as long as I was. Story 55 I used to like Rihanna in the earlier days of her music career. In 2011 my ex-husband and I went to see her do a gig at the O2 in London. She finally turned up on stage about 1.5 hours late with no explanation or apology. I was pregnant at the time and my husband was recovering from a lung infection, so we were getting pretty fed up of waiting around. Then we had to leave before the end as the show was now due to end after the last train back to Southampton. She also didn't really seem to engage with the crowd much other than getting some guy on stage for a. I was lucky enough to see Linkin Park twice in concert, and I really liked that throughout the shows they kept saying how much they appreciated their fans and how they remembered what it was like to be in the crowd and how they were nothing without their fans. I lost pretty much all respect for Rihanna after that, as she clearly doesn't respect her fans. Story 56 Backstreet Boys Nick Carter's rape allegations and the boys supporting him did it for me. It really sucks because I grew up loving their music so much. Story 57 Drake. When he first came out I dug his fusion of hip-hop and R&B and rap song style. Take Care is one of the few albums I can listen without skipping. but now the rest is history. Story 58 Russell Brand. Like many, my first introduction to Russell Brand was on the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Then I found his comedy special and enjoyed that. I'd see him debate conservative talking heads about economic policy, drug laws, etc. Thought it was really inspirational how he overcame heroin addiction and how he helped others get their lives on track by actually doing work, not just "oh, your book helped me." Then came the anti-vax stuff, which didn't completely turn me against him. Then he started dressing like Jesus and giving off cult leader vibes, then the rape allegations, then going full MAGA, which is the opposite of everything he seemed to stand for prior to COVID, whether that was to build a really loyal fanbase that would love him through the allegations he suspected were going to come in the future or what. There's probably other things scattered throughout the years that I liked or didn't like, but I can't think of what they are now. Edit to clarify, the rape allegations kinda sealed the deal. The cult leader stuff had already made me not like him anymore. The anti-vax stuff was just the thing I disliked about a person I liked. I still have friends that are anti-vax, and I don't dislike them because of that. It's just my least favorite aspect of them. But if they started attracting rape allegations, then I dislike them as a person. Story 59 Taylor Swift. I loved her 15 years ago but took a 180-degree turn as years roll on. Didn't really like how she keeps on releasing the same album in different covers. Story 60 The full list of people who signed the petition in support of Polanski, from Eva Green, through Whoopi Goldberg, to Ewan McGregor. The list is a gigantic disappointment and illustrates how many people are absolute trash. Portman is one of the few people who have come forward and have retracted their support, apologized. Not on the same level, but it was really disappointing. Jack Black. Story 61 I liked David Letterman as a kid in the 90s, then grew up to hate him as he was sleeping with his intern. Don't even get me started on the Clintons, all of them. Story 62 Dennis Rodman. I always knew he was a bit of a freak show. I read a biography and his whole life has been pretty insane, but his embracing of Kim Jong-un did it for me. Story 63 Mickey Rourke. Thought he was a cool battler, rough dude, became a successful actor, quit to do fights, got up worse by bad surgery. Made an acting comeback, cool as, right? Then I just saw him in a clip from a celebrity reality TV show, I guess Big Brother, and Taffy saying to Jojo Siwa, like, she has her own demons she's battling, but he straight up harassed and threatened SA on her and tried to get the other housemates to agree and didn't even consider for a second he may be quite inappropriate, not to mention the fact that he's like 5x her age. Like, remove this man away from this woman immediately. Just a gross, sick dude with zero awareness or accountability. Story 64 There are a few celebrities that have jumped on the political bandwagon that I can no longer respect. It's not because they have a political position or opinion though, it's because they went way down the conspiracy hole and got sucked in. Kevin Sorbo is one of them. Back in the 90s I thought he was pretty cool, and then later he started talking about not getting jobs just because he's a Christian. Then later on during the Trump era he's jumped both feet into nonsense. Now he spends his time starring in political rage theater for Christians that doesn't even have a basis in reality. Story 65 Just stop admiring actors. All they do is pretend to be someone else. They say lines and we treat them like heroes. It's so weird. They are so often clusterfucks of people. Stop celebrating them and you'll stop being disappointed. Story 66 J.K. Rowling and Neil Gaiman. They've tainted the books that got me through so much as a preteen and teen. Full on heartbreak, disgust, and embarrassment is what I'm left with. Story 67 Gwen Stefani. She was a feminist icon and really rock. Now that the world needs that spirit she's gone full tradwife, living in the shadow of her husband and endorsing MAGA. Story 68 J.K. Rowling. I wanted to be a fantasy writer myself and that didn't pan out for me. And I was so proud of Rowling for all her success. I was a fan of the HP book since the first one came out. Some friends recommended it. I am so disappointed in the person she wound up being. Her works were literally a safe space for marginalized people, and it turned out she hated a lot of us. Her, John Barrowman, he's hot, hilarious, and great at acting. He also thought it was funny to expose himself at work, especially during stage performances in ways the audience couldn't see but his coworkers could. When confronted with his behavior being harassment, he gave a non-apology, excusing it as a joke that was appropriate at the time but just didn't age well. Story 69 Freaking J.K. Rowling. I can't believe someone who wrote a 7-part book series as flawed as it was about love being the moving force of life and being defined not by what we're born like, but by our decisions, could turn out to be so rotten and full of hate. Story 71 Will Smith, his weird marriage, an Academy Award incident 2, Kanye don't even understand anymore, seems grooming his new partner. 3. Most of talk show hosts, nowadays more and more serving up politics and discussions instead of movies and life. Story 71 A man. This is gonna get political but my answer is Elon Musk, pre-Trump. I always felt people's hate for him was overblown. My opinion was that he was an arrogant but that he's done way more good for the world than most of his haters, making electric cars cool, battery technology in Australia saving them power, Starlink bringing internet to the world, etc. Since Trump, I can't stand the guy now, obvious reasons. Story 72 Jeffree Star. Taught me how to do makeup, taught me self-confidence, love some of his music style, etc. But after following him for a few years, I eventually found out he was a nasty person. He must be very lonely and miserable to be that much of a bully. Story 73 Sylvester Stallone broke me last year when I found out he's MAGA. I was such a fan of the Rocky franchise and the Expendables franchise too, plus his other classic films like Demolition Man, Dredd, Get Carter. But no, I don't care who you are, once you support a hate-mongering thug into power over others, you're dead to me. You are that thug, Stallone. Story 74. Jack Black left Kyle Gass out to dry. I also am to believe it was he who cancelled the world tour. He is also becoming increasingly annoying in movies. Story 75. Chris Pratt when he was married to Anna Faris and on Parks and Rec. Then he sold his soul to the Hollywood machine and got super religious and got remarried and now he's insufferable. Story 76. Johnny Depp. Thought for being such a cool good-looking guy that he had a lot of integrity for choosing such offbeat films where he played such a wide range of roles. Then after the Pirates franchise he sort of just began his great decline. Abuse allegations, insane spending, dressing like an actual pirate. I now see him as kind of a sad loser that never grew up. Story 77. Taylor Swift. I was a fan, not the weird one though, and then she came to Brazil and she took that awful photo with the family of the deceased fan. That was the creepiest I've seen. Why she needed to be on full tour bodysuit. For sake, she's a billionaire. She could have met the family wearing something normal on a meeting space and not her dressing room before the show. For me it is and always will be disrespectful and in poor taste. There's no respect for the family and their loss. Story 78. I used to admire John Lennon, the music, the message, the persona, but then I learned how he treated his first wife, Cynthia, and their son Julian. After their divorce, he fought in court to pay as little child support as possible, and left them struggling financially while he moved on with his new life. Cynthia, in a moment of financial desperation, ended up auctioning off old love letters John had written to her. One of the bidders, anonymous at the time, offered far more than anyone else. She accepted the offer. Days later, she received a package in the mail. Inside were all the letters she had sold, along with a small note that read, "Never sell your memories." It was signed by Paul McCartney. John sang about peace and love, but when it came to the people closest to him, he showed neither. His message to the world was peace, but his actions at home told a very different story. Story 79. Taylor Swift. Fans will do backflips to defend everything, but over the past few years there's been too many things. I don't hate her, I still like the music and can admire aspects of her business acumen, but I think TDPD revealed a side to her I really don't like. That coupled with the aspects of her business that are hard for fans and bad for the environment, I just really dissociate myself from this era.